Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the second edition of the Sunday Story. Now in today's Sunday Story we're going to talk all about fear. Now some of you will know that I did a recent video called Give Fear the Finger. If you haven't had a chance to catch it yet, I will leave a link in the description below. Now every one of us has faced fears at one time or another. Some of us may be facing them right now, but it's really important that we do confront our fears. Why? Because if we don't, that can really cripple us. It can really have a fundamental and detrimental impact on our success and us living the life that we want to live. So in today's Sunday Story, I'm going to be sharing with you some great personal and true stories of people that have confronted fear and overcome it. Let's go. So the first story comes from a session that I did about 2 years ago. Again, a session about dealing with change. It was a 2-day session. I always tell them, so part of our job as trainers is to kind of get people out of their comfort zone. That's really important. Why? Because if you get yourself out of the comfort zone, that's how you grow. So one of the things that we talk about, and I always tell them on day one, is that on day two, when they come back, I'm going to ask them to get into groups and do a presentation about what they learnt from day one. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, that has varied reactions around the room. There are people that genuinely love doing presentations, but I would say the vast majority of people, it's a really scary thing for people to do, particularly standing in front of a lot of people that you know and you know really well. But that's the plan. Put them into groups, and I say to them, do you know what? You just have to be involved in some way, even if all you're doing is holding up a piece of flip chart paper. So it got to mid-morning. We had a little break at mid-morning, and I was approached by one of the guys in the session, and he came to me really honestly and said, Paul, I heard what you said about doing a presentation tomorrow. I can't do presentations. They scare the hell out of me. I clam up. I start getting a bit of a stutter. He said, I just can't do them. It's something that I've had to deal with all my life, and I'd really appreciate if I didn't take part. So, one thing I will always say as a trainer is I'm never ever going to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. It has to be your decision. So one of the things I said to him was, like, appreciate you being honest, because I think it's always important to be really honest. But, you know, later on, we're going to do a little session about dealing with fear. So what I'm going to say to you is, you know, let's go through that session. Let's have those conversations, and you've obviously got a night then to go away and think about it. And if we return in the morning and it's not something you want to do, then not a problem whatsoever. Okay, but just hear me out and let's see where we go from there. But I'm not going to put any pressure on you the following day to do it. So that was that. So then we did the session about fear. Okay, and I guess really the message is, and I think we probably all know this, how often, I mean, so many of us have dealt with fears. I mean, you heard about my fear of, a bit of a silly fear, but a fear of Big Bird from Sesame Street. I did overcome it one day. I went to Busch Gardens, and it turned out that there was Sesame Street world in Busch Gardens, so I was kind of almost forced by the people I was with, so a bit of peer pressure to force me to go around there, and I actually did have to confront Big Bird. I stopped short of shaking his hand because, you know, he probably had anthrax or something like that. But you know, I dealt with it and I confronted him. Okay, it's a silly fear, but you know, we all deal with fears throughout our life. Okay, and one of the things that I think most of us will agree is that once we've overcome a fear, the first thing we'll say is, "Oh God, that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be." And it never is as bad as you think it's going to be, because, as I said in my previous video, the problem is before you confront something and before you choose to confront something, your mind will always try to turn you away from confronting it by giving you the worst case scenario of the situation. So in this case, what his mind was probably telling him is, you're going to go up there, you're going to clam up, you're going to look absolutely stupid, people are going to laugh at you, and you're never going to live it down. Okay? Worst case scenario. But one of the things that we talk to people about is, on the other side of fear is all the good stuff. You just have to overcome that hurdle. Okay? But what you don't want to do is, you've got one hurdle's relatively easy to get over. But what we tend to do is place our own hurdles on top of that. So you end up with like 10 hurdles. So all of a sudden you feel like you've got to be like Colin Jackson. God, I'm showing my age now. I hope people know who Colin Jackson is. He's a hurdler, but you know, when you've got 10 hurdles to get over, you know, that can really make us think, do you know what? I won't bother. One hurdle? We can do it, absolutely. And if you can overcome that fear, you will find that, I actually find that when a lot of people overcome their fear, not only will they say it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but they'll feel encouraged to want to do it again as quickly as possible. A really good example of that would be, you know, when people want to decide to do a parachute jump. There's a really great video, I'll try and link it in the description below, which Will Smith, the actor, does, where he talks about being down in a bar with his friends, and they were all talking about, oh, let's go and do a parachute jump. And of course, you know, when you're with guys, you're kind of like, yeah, come on, we'll do it. Yeah, I'm going to do it. We'll all do it. And that's exactly what he did. And then he got home, and all of a sudden he thought, oh shit, that's like my biggest fear. I can't do this. But then you kind of say, but it's fine, because, you know, tomorrow we'll get up and people will go, oh, we were really drunk last night and we're not really going to do it, so it'll be fine. Of course, when he got up the next day, he found that all his friends were still planning to do it. And that whole thing about peer pressure, again, I mentioned it in the video, peer pressure can be a really bad thing, but actually in overcoming fear, sometimes it can be a really good thing, because it can kind of just push you on to overcome that fear. And that's exactly what it did with Will Smith. He kind of thought, well, I've agreed to do it now. I don't want to look stupid in front of my mates, so I'll do it. Of course, he did the jump. It's actually on the video. It's all captured on the video. And one of the first things he said once he's done it is, that was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. So, and that tends to be what fear is. It's this barrier to overcome. But once we overcome it, we're in a really great place, and we kind of want to do it again, and we want to take on the next one. Okay, we want to take on the next big challenge. So that's what we talked about during the day. You know, there's a popular phrase that our team used to use, and it's called feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's kind of the message that I gave during that session, and I give during every session, because again, I just think it's really, really important. There are people out there, I think, who spend their lives crippled by fear, and if they can't overcome that fear, they'll never move forward. And this whole thing I talked about in another video about legacy is, you don't want to be sitting there, you know, 80 years old thinking, I wish I didn't done this, I wish I didn't, you know, I wish I'd overcome this fear, because then I could have done so much more with my life. So overcoming fear, I know I keep saying it, but it's so important to being successful. So that's the message that we gave. Anyway, long story short, you know I do waffle on a little bit. I say these are going to be short stories. They're never short stories. So fast forward to the next day, and obviously everybody's coming into the session, and in walks the guy that I had a conversation with. So at a quiet moment before we started, I just kind of quickly took him to one side and said, how you feeling? Obviously, as I said yesterday, if you don't want to do it, it's not a problem. I'm not going to force you to do anything. Okay. But he said, Paul, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. But I thought about what you said and feel the fear and do it anyway, right? That's exactly what he said to me. He'd obviously been thinking it over and realising that actually if he didn't confront this fear, it was going to really limit him. So he told me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be part of the presentation. Okay. Now at that point, obviously they go away in groups. I didn't know how big a part of the presentation he was going to be. He may have literally just got up and lifted up a piece of flip chart paper. Okay. Could have done that. Could have absolutely done that. But when it came to his group's presentation, what I actually found was that he actually contributed and was involved in doing more of the presentation than anybody else in his team. And he got up there, he presented, he stuttered. You could see it was very, very difficult for him. There's no doubt about that. But whilst he confused his words a little bit now and again, and he made a few mistakes, he carried on, he got through. And if I'm honest, the end was kind of like, it sounds really schmaltzy, but it sounds like a bit of a Hollywood movie. Like, I don't know, the end of Dead Poets Society or something. He finished the presentation, and at the end of it, every single member of his team in the room got onto their feet and applauded him. it was one of those moments that as a trainer I'll never forget. It was crazy. It was absolutely fantastic, which was brilliant. You know, he overcome his fear, he dealt with it, and he made a decision that he was not going to let this fear cripple him, which I think is absolutely brilliant. When we got to lunchtime, I had a time to have a quick chat with him, and the first thing he said was, "Paul, you don't know how relieved I am. You don't know how great it feels to have finally beaten that fear that's literally been dogging me for years and years and years. I knew it was going to potentially prevent me from moving up in my career when it came to interviews, all that kind of stuff. And now I've done it, and now I don't think I'll be afraid anymore. I'll still have a little bit of nerves, which is perfectly fine. You know, people, I do this for a living, and people think, oh, you must never get nervous. I get nervous 5 minutes before every presentation and every training session I do. And I always think the day that I don't get nervous is the day that I don't care. Being nervous shows that you really care about doing a great job. So it's really, really important. There's nothing wrong with getting nervous, okay? But he's turning that nervousness, and in future he'll be able to turn that nervousness into really great positive energy. And it was so great to see, and so great to see the people's reaction in the room. One of those situations in the 2 years, and I've probably done well over 100 training sessions, probably well over 100 training sessions, but it's one of the stories that really sticks out in terms of seeing someone who was completely crippled by fear, and really thought, do you know what, no more. I'm going to confront it, and I'm going to deal with it. And it was beautiful to watch. It was, you know, I'd probably be lying if I said that it didn't get me pretty emotional at the time, and a number of people in the room very emotional, because they knew how much it meant to this guy to overcome this fear, and he absolutely did it. And I was proud of him, and his whole team was so proud of him. And what I then saw for the rest of day 2 was a guy that literally just completely came out of his shell. You know, day 1 he'd been quite quiet, been quite reserved, but actually what you saw the next day, and after he's confronted that fear, was he completely opened up. He was so involved in the rest of the day, and you could see that his confidence had literally shot up by overcoming his fear. And I think that's a really great story to show this is what can happen if you've got a fear out there and you've constantly not been able to deal with it, you've constantly been running away from it. This is what can happen when you confront your fear. And I guess I would say, ask yourself this question: do I want to continue to feel this way? Because if you don't, if you confront your fear, those horrible feelings that you get, this horrible limiting feeling that you know that fear is holding you back from, okay? It's absolutely holding you back from what you want. If you can overcome that fear, you will feel so elated. You will feel on top of the world, and you will want to do it again and again and again. And all of a sudden, that one thing that you were scared of, all of a sudden, it's nothing now. I always think if anyone's a video gamer, fear's like the end of level boss, okay? You know, that end of level boss is difficult. All of a sudden, you know what? You'll probably lose a few lives on the way there. You know, he'll probably destroy you a couple of times. But actually, what do? You go away, and every single time, you learn a little bit more. And before you know it, you start to work out where his weaknesses are. You start to work out where he's vulnerable. And the next thing you know, you've beaten him. But is that the end of the game? Of course not. There'll be other levels. And even when the game's completed, there'll no doubt be a sequel, okay? It's a never-ending process, okay? But the more we can beat fear, the more we can challenge fear, the more we can accomplish, the more successful we can be. And you know what? The more we're going to enjoy our lives, okay? Because, yeah, we can all live in that comfortable bubble, that comfort zone that I've just talked about, okay? But the fact is, we won't accomplish very much in that bubble, okay? And we will live a life that will be well below what we're capable of, okay? Just to give you kind of another example, so I've kind of got another story about dealing with fear. So again, this story comes from a similar training session. We did the whole section on fear that I've just talked about. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Very, very powerful session. I always think it really hits home amongst the people that you're doing it. I think sometimes until you're all kind of in a room and you're really having a really deep discussion about fear, that the light bulb moment tends to happen during that session. So we did that session. Everybody went home day one. Really, really great session. Really enjoyed it. Normally, I love my job. I think everybody knows how much I love my job, and I can, most of the time I just can't wait to get back for day two. And I guess this session was absolutely one of those days where we'd had such a great day one and I just couldn't wait to get back for day two. So got back for day two. I was just setting up. Before anybody else had arrived, one of the guys came in and just asked, can I have a quick chat? So I was like, yeah, of course you can. So he just said to me, came out of it and said, can I ask you a question? I was like, yeah, of course. Did you know I was gay? Well, that was I didn't really know what to say, to be honest. I don't know. What do you say? Like, no, I didn't. I didn't know he was gay. I don't know what you're supposed to say in that situation other than what I said, which was, no, I didn't. He said, the only reason I'm telling you that is that my teammates, and these are teammates he'd worked with for 5-6 years, a number of years, okay. His teammates had always known, and he'd been really, really upfront with them about his sexuality. So they all knew he was gay. But he said, the one or the two people that don't know I'm gay is my mum and dad. I've never been able to tell them, and it's a fear that has kind of crippled me, and I know that I can't really live the life I want to live until I do it, but the fear of how they'll react has always held me back. But I really went home and I really thought about what we talked about yesterday and what you said, and the whole idea of it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. This thing that our mind creates for us. But he really went away and thought about it hard. It really resonated with him, what we were talking about. And he said, I went home last night and I decided to finally tell my parents that I was gay. Which at the time I remember thinking, oh my God, how did that go? Because, at the end of the day, I think when you've got people in the room, it's kind of almost that Spider-Man moment, isn't it? Where with great power comes great responsibility. And whilst we are training people about teamwork and dealing with change, there's a lot of stuff there that resonates with their personal lives. And I think you have to be really careful as a trainer because you don't want to do or say the wrong thing. Okay. But, he said, I talked to them about it last night and I said, okay, so how'd it go? It was the best thing I've ever done. Apparently, he said, they've known for ages anyway. But straight away, they said to me, doesn't bother us. We're absolutely fine with it. You live the life that you want to live. And he said, and I feel like a 10-ton weight has just been lifted off my shoulders, which was incredible. Again, it's one of those things that, when I reflect back on all the training that I've done, is one of those moments that I'll never forget. And as a trainer, it's great when you get great feedback at the end of a session. But when you hear something like that, that's when you kind of drive home from a training session and think, this is why I love the job. Because sometimes our job's not just about how to deal with a change of moving from here to here. It's actually about impacting people's social life and not doing it for them, but just providing the catalyst for them to make that change for themselves. And I think that's so important, So, that's why I love my job. That's why I've always loved my job. So I guess just to sum up this video, and as I say, if you haven't had a chance to check out my video of Give Fear the Finger, I absolutely encourage you to do that. But I guess just kind of my final thought on this is we've all got things we have to deal with, okay? We've all got things that we're scared of. Life is hard. We all know it is. And God, in the situation that we're in at the moment, life's really, really hard, okay? But you cannot let fear cripple you. Okay, we all want to live our best life. We all want to be the best version of ourselves. And unfortunately, in order to do that, that means that we have to overcome obstacles. It means that we have to deal and confront fear. Now I'm really eager to hear from the people out there watching this video. So please use the comments below. Tell me, is there something that you've overcome recently? A fear you've overcome? How did it feel? How has it changed and transformed your life? Or is there something out there that you're really struggling to deal with? So if you have any questions for me or would like to take advantage of some free coaching, please let me know. And I also ask that if you found value in this video, can you share, like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. And for those of you that have not seen it already, you've had the side dish, you can obviously sample the main meal by checking out my other video, which is Give Fear the Finger. This is where I outline some really great steps that you can take to help overcome any fears that you may have. Please remember that I put out videos every Thursday and every Sunday, and join me for the next Sunday story, which is obviously next Sunday. If you're a worrier, or you consider yourself to be a worrier, you don't want to miss it. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this video. I leave you with this: fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. That's got to be the worst Yoda impression ever. I'm so sorry. Embarrassed I will be. Till next time, face your fears and stay safe.